Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes, including family dynamics, personal growth, and vulnerability. It does not contain explicit material. Viewer discretion is advised. I didn't expect to be alone with him that weekend, honestly. I didn't expect much from him at all. When his father left for a last-minute business trip, I figured Alex would stay in his room like he always did, earbuds in, hoodie up, walls sky high. That had been the rhythm since I married his dad 2 years ago. He was polite enough, never disrespectful, but there was always this quiet resistance, like he was waiting for me to slip up. To prove I didn't belong in their lives. He was 24. Still living at home after college, figuring things out. I respected that. I kept my space, didn't push. I knew I wasn't his mom, and I never tried to be. I was just the woman his father married. That's how he thought he saw me. So when it was just the two of us that weekend, I expected silence, distance, maybe the occasional awkward nod in the hallway. But what happened instead? What he said, how he looked at me, I didn't see it coming. Friday night started simple enough. I made dinner. He actually came downstairs, which was already surprising. We ate in front of the TV, watching something neither of us cared about. I cracked a joke. I don't even remember what it was. But he laughed out, like really laughed. Not the forced kind people give just to be polite. It caught me off guard. Didn't know you were funny, he said. I smiled. There's a lot you don't know about me. He glanced over. Yeah. Maybe that's true. There was something different in his tone, but I brushed it off. Just a moment. Just one of those rare instances where things feel normal. But later that night, he knocked on my door. That alone was strange. He never knocked. Never came to me for anything. Hey, he said, standing in the doorway. You got a minute? I nodded, gestured for him to come in. He didn't sit, just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the floor like he was working up to something. I've been meaning to say, I haven't really given you a chance, and that's on me. It was quiet for a second. I appreciate you being here for Dad, for the house, for everything. I didn't know what to say. I'd waited so long for a sign that maybe, just maybe, he didn't hate me. And now here it was, out of nowhere. Thank you, I said softly. That means a lot. He nodded, but didn't move. The silence stretched out. Then he looked up at me, really looked at me. There was something in his eyes I couldn't read. Not anger, not discomfort, something heavier, something honest. I feel like you see me, he said, not just as someone's kid, but like a person. I felt the shift in the room. The air tightened. I wanted to speak, but before I could, he stepped closer. And what he said next changed everything. I stood there, trying to process what he had just said. I feel like you see me. That wasn't something you casually drop in a conversation. It was personal, raw. And it cracked open something between us that neither of us had dared to touch before. I nodded slowly, heart pounding. Of course I see you, Alex. I always have. He looked away for a second, jaw tightening. Most people don't. Not even my dad. Honestly, that stung, not because it was directed at me, but because I knew there was truth in it. His father, my husband, was a good man, a provider, but emotionally distant, a fixer. Not a feeler, the kind of man who saw a problem and reached for a solution, not a conversation. Alex had grown up with that. I'd seen the aftershocks. How he held people at arm's length. How he second-guessed every compliment. How he brushed off emotion like it was something to be ashamed of. I knew those signs because I wore them, too, once. I know he cares, I said carefully. He just doesn't always know how to show it. Alex scoffed. Not you and kindly. Yeah. Story of his life. He moved to the window, pulled back the curtain slightly. The room was dim. The only light coming from the hallway behind him. I could see his reflection in the glass, tense, but searching for something. You know, I was relieved when he married you, he said suddenly. I blinked. That I didn't expect. Really? Yeah. He needed someone real, someone who didn't pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. He turned around. You don't sugarcoat. You're just you. I wasn't sure what to say. Compliments weren't his thing. Vulnerability wasn't his thing. And here he was, laying it all out, unfiltered. So why be even so cold to me all this time? I asked, voice quiet but direct. He hesitated. Then, because I didn't know how to let you in without feeling like I was betraying her. His mother. We never talked about her. It was an unspoken boundary, and I respected it. She passed away 5 years before I met Alex's father. From what little I knew, She was kind, strong, loved fiercely. I never tried to replace her. Never could. I get that, I said, but I'm not here to take her place. I just want to be part of your world. Whatever that looks like. He stepped closer again. Not in a threatening way, but like he was ready, maybe for the first time, to close that distance. I guess I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. He stopped just a foot away from me. The energy between us shifted again. Not romantic, not familial, something else. Something that didn't fit into neat categories. We stood there, the silence, thick, full of things neither of us was ready to say. His eyes locked on mine, and I could see it, the weight he carried. The questions he didn't know how to ask. The emotions he'd buried under years of trying to be fine. He opened his mouth, about to say something else, but then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked it, jaw clenching. It's Dad. He's coming home early. I didn't know what to feel, relief, tension, disappointment. Alex looked up. Guess this conversation gets shelved again. But the way he said it. It didn't sound like he wanted it to. The knock on the front door. The next morning jolted both of us out of the strange calm we'd settled into. I was in the kitchen, making coffee. Alex was sitting at the table, unusually quiet, staring at his untouched toast. The buzz of his phone the night before had shifted something, like a door had opened and then slammed shut again. I glanced at the door. You expecting someone? He shook his head. No, it was his aunt. His late mother's sister Carla. We hadn't seen her in months. She lived 2 towns over, made occasional appearances at holidays, but we'd never been close. She came in like a storm, hair disheveled, coat half buttoned, talking before I could say hello. Have you talked to Robert? She asked. He's not answering. His phone. Robert? Alex's dad. My husband. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. No, not since last night. He said he was flying back early this morning. Carla looked at Alex. Did he tell you anything about the will? That word, will, hung in the air like smoke. Alex's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Carla sighed, lowering her voice like we were suddenly part of a conspiracy. Your dad changed his will recently, took me off it, left everything to you, and her. She jerked her head in my direction. I blinked. What? I didn't even know there was a new will. He said he was going to tell you both this weekend, Carla said, arms folded. Guess he changed his mind. Alex stood up, his voice sharp. Why? Are you even here, Carla? Because your dad and I had an agreement. She snapped. Your mom's side of the family wasn't supposed to be erased just because he moved on. That hit a nerve for all of us. The unspoken truth was that Carla had never truly accepted Robert's second marriage. She saw me as a replacement, not a partner, and Alex, well, it was clear now that even after all this time, his loyalties were still being pulled into directions. After Carla left, slamming the door behind her, the tension in the house shifted. He didn't sit back down, just stood there, hands clenched, staring into space. Did you know about this? He asked. Voice low. No, I said. I swear to you, Alex, your dad never said a word. He nodded, but the quiet between us was different now. It wasn't reflective. It was cautious, like we were both afraid of what this meant. Not about money, but about trust. About control, about what roles we each really played. In this family, later that evening, Robert still hadn't called. No updates, no return messages. The airline confirmed his name was on a flight, but no confirmation that he'd landed. It was like he'd vanished. Alex paced the living room, phone in hand. This isn't like him, and it wasn't, whatever emotional distance Robert had. He was reliable. He didn't ghost people. He didn't drop bombs like Carla's revelation and then disappear. You think something happened? I asked. I don't know what to think. Alex muttered. But if he's not here tomorrow? I'm calling the police. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. What if Robert hadn't just disappeared? What if he chose not to come back? And if he didn't? What would that leave us with? By Sunday morning, everything felt wrong. Robert hadn't come home. No calls. No texts, no answers from the airline. No charges on his credit card, no hotel check-ins. It had been over 24 hours since anyone had seen or heard from him. Alex hadn't slept. He was running on black coffee and pure adrenaline, eyes bloodshot, pacing non-stop. I tried to keep it together, for both of us, but every time I picked up my phone and saw nothing, my stomach turned tighter. We filed a missing person report that afternoon. The officer took it seriously. Robert was a frequent traveler, not someone who just disappeared. But still, there was nothing they could do yet. No evidence of foul play. No sign of him at the airport on security footage. That night, I found Alex in the garage. He was sitting on the hood of his dad's old Mustang, the one they were supposed to restore together but never did. His elbows rested on his knees, his head low. He looked like a kid again, but more broken than I'd ever seen him. "He's gone," he said, voice flat. "We don't know that," I replied. But even I didn't believe it anymore. He looked up at me. "You don't get it. He left. This is what he does when it gets hard. I've seen it before. After Mom died. He checked out, left me to deal with everything." "That's not the same. It is," he snapped, then softened. "You just weren't around to see it." I stepped closer, but didn't touch him. "I see it now, and I see you." His expression cracked. "What if this is it? What if he left everything in that world because he knew he wasn't coming back?" The silence was thick. I didn't want to say it out loud, but part of me had wondered the same thing. Was this some kind of plan, an escape? A goodbye wrapped in legal documents. Alex slid off the car and walked over to the workbench. He pulled out an envelope, sealed, with his name written in Robert's sharp, controlled handwriting. "It was in his desk," he said. "I found it this morning. My breath caught. Are you going to open it?" He hesitated. "I don't know if I want to know what's inside. Then why did you keep it?" He looked at me, pain etched into every part of his face. "Because part of me still thinks he might explain himself, that maybe this wasn't all just a way to disappear." He stared at the envelope, then, without another word, he opened it. His eyes scanned the page. Slowly, silently. Then his lips parted, just barely, as he reached the final line. "What does it say?" I asked. He handed it to me, his hands trembling. It was a letter. Apologizing, admitting he'd made mistakes, saying he didn't know how to be a good father after Alex's mother died. That he thought the best thing he could do now was to leave them everything and let them move on, without the burden of him. It wasn't a suicide note, but it read like closure. Like resignation. Alex sat down, knees buckling. "He's not coming back," he whispered. And in that moment, the walls between us completely fell away. We didn't talk much after reading the letter. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, like the air had thickened around us, soaked in everything on set. But the twist didn't come from the letter. It came 2 days later. In the form of a phone call. I was in the kitchen, half listening to the news in the background, trying to go through the motions of normal life. The phone rang, blocked number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to pick it up. "Hello," static. Then a voice, calm, measured. "Mail. Is this Mrs. Langford?" "Yes." "Who's this?" "This is Detective Halpern, with the Carson City Police Department. I need to speak with you about Robert Langford." My grip on the phone tightened. "You found him?" There was a pause. "We've located his vehicle." Something in his tone fell off. My stomach dropped. "Where?" "Abandoned in a parking garage near the Nevada border." There were no signs of struggle, but the vehicle was wiped clean. No prints, no personal effects. I blinked. "So, you're saying he didn't just leave it there?" "We're not ruling anything out, but it appears deliberate. There's also something else you need to know." I felt the blood drain from my face. He continued. "Earlier this year, Mr. Langford wired a large sum of money to an unlisted account in the Cayman Islands. That account was closed 3 days ago." "What?" I whispered. "We're trying to determine whether this was an intentional disappearance or if there's something more serious going on. But we need to ask, has anyone contacted you asking about Robert recently? Anyone suspicious?" I didn't even know how to answer. The call ended shortly after, but the shock didn't. I found Alex in the den, sitting on the floor, surrounded by old family albums. I told him everything. At first, he didn't react, just stared blankly. Then he laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Of course," he said. "Of course he didn't just walk away. He planned this." I nodded slowly. "He emptied an account, disappeared. Left us a letter that read like a confession. But if this was all about guilt, why the secrecy? Why the money offshore?" Alex's jaw tightened. "Because maybe it wasn't guilt. Maybe it was strategy." That's when he pulled something out of one of the photo albums. A small envelope, yellowed at the edges. I hadn't noticed it before. He opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph, black and white, old. Two young men, barely in their 20s, standing outside a diner. One was definitely Robert. The other man, a stranger. Alex turned the photo over, There was a name scribbled on the back. Daniel Halpern. I froze. Wait, Detective Halpern. Alex looked at me. You don't think? No, that's impossible, but we both knew. It wasn't. Robert hadn't just vanished. He'd built a trap, or maybe he'd tried to escape one. And now someone else, someone who was supposed to be helping us, might be involved. The name on the back of the photo wouldn't leave our heads. Daniel Halpern, same name as the detective who called about Robert, same voice that had calmly delivered news designed to distract us. We didn't waste time. Alex searched every record he could find, public directories, law enforcement registries. And then we hit something. A Daniel Halpern had worked as a private investigator in Carson City. Not a police detective. Not officially. We had to be sure. So we drove there. 5 hours in silence, tension curling around us like smoke. We tracked the address linked to the PI license, an old office above a laundromat. We waited, watched, then he showed up, mid-50s, sultan pepper beard, lean build. Same voice, same man, but when Alex approached him, called out his name. The man didn't run, he smiled. You're Robert's kid. Alex froze. Where is he? The man gestured for us to follow. Up the narrow stairwell, into the dusty office, no words exchanged until the door shut behind us. He asked me to help him disappear. The man said, calmly, he wanted out clean, no trails, no mess. He'd been planning it for over a year. Why? I demanded. Why leave everything? Leave us. Because he was being watched. Halpern said. By people who weren't going to stop. He thought staying meant putting both of you in danger. Alex's face was stone. Danger from who? Business deals gone bad, real estate ventures with partners who played dirty. He tried to back out. They threatened him. Then you. Halpern glanced at me. Especially you. That shook me. He figured if he disappeared, they'd lose interest, leave you both alone. But when the will got filed, Carla started poking around. That's when things got messy. That's when he panicked. You let us think he was dead, Alex said, voice cracking. I couldn't tell you the truth. He didn't want you involved. But he left something behind. Said you'd need it when the time came. Halpern reached into his desk and pulled out a key, small, unmarked. He didn't say what it opens. He added, only that it was meant for both of you. We left without another word, drove home in silence. It took us a day to figure out what the key opened. It wasn't a bank box or a safe. It was the storage unit in our own neighborhood, one I didn't even know Robert had. Inside was a small locker, a single box. Inside that box, a flash drive, a journal, and a photo. The photo was of me and Alex, laughing, unaware, taken from a distance. The journal explained everything. Robert had been documenting the threats, the evidence, the extortion attempts, everything he couldn't say out loud. The flash drive backed it up. Names, transfers, audio recordings. He hadn't just run. He'd sacrificed himself to draw them away. We sat on the floor of the unit, stunned. Alex finally broke the silence. He didn't abandon us. He protected us. I nodded, tears in my throat. He loved us. In the only way he knew how. And in that moment, the resentment faded, the confusion softened. We weren't just victims of a disappearance. We were survivors of a man's last, desperate attempt to make things right. But as we left the unit, a car parked across the street slowly pulled away. Someone had been watching. The car that had been watching us disappeared down the street, but it left a chill in the air. Alex and I exchanged a look. We both knew it wasn't over. Not yet. We made copies of everything in the storage box. The flash drive, Robert's journal, the photo. Then we took it straight to the authorities, not the local ones this time, but a federal agency Robert had once hinted at in his notes. He was right to avoid the local cops. Turns out, some of them were on the payroll of the very people he was hiding from. Over the next few weeks, a full investigation rolled out. Alex and I were pulled into interviews, asked to walk through every detail. Robert's files. They cracked the case wide open. Names were arrested. Shell companies exposed. One of the men listed in the journal, someone Robert once called a silent partner, was arrested crossing the Canadian border. And the man who posed as Detective Halpern, real name, Dale Winters, former PI, turned fixer for corrupt businessmen. He was picked up to towns over trying to leave the state. It felt surreal. Like the danger had always been inches away from us, and we hadn't seen it until Robert forced it into the light. In the end, Robert didn't come back. No final phone call, no dramatic reunion, just silence. But that silence didn't hurt anymore. Alex changed after all of it. Not overnight, but he softened. Let go of that constant anger he carried like armor. We started talking more. Not about Robert all the time, but about life, real things. He surprised me one afternoon when we were sitting on the back porch. He pulled out the old photo album again. I used to think he didn't love me. He said quietly, but now I get it. He didn't know how to show it. But he tried. I nodded. Sometimes love isn't obvious. Sometimes it looks like sacrifice, the weight between. US finally lifted, a month later. We scattered Robert's ashes at the lake he used to fish at. Just Alex and me. No ceremony, no words, just quiet, just closure. And with that, the story was done. Not with a clean bow, but with honesty. Robert was flawed. Complicated. He hurt people, but in the end, he did something selfless. He protected the people he loved, even if it meant disappearing. That's what stuck with me the most. You don't have to be perfect to be good. Sometimes, trying is enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We read everything.